Good morning.
Good morning, Ayana. Thank you.
Morning, Ayana.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Good morning.
Good. Morning.
Good morning.
A lot less people than the Parker Ave calls.
Should be less question and answer, I think.
We had nearly 60 people each night.
Yeah, that was a good turnout.
Yeah. Everybody was respectful. That was good. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. Paul, looks like we don't have anybody for public comment at the moment. So Paul, we're going to start with your first discussion item, the spring rakeout. I guess you and Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. DeLuca. So, spring rakeout essentially takes, people's twigs and sticks and branches that fall through the winter, and DPW goes around and picks them up for the residents, and we actually have a bid out right now that's opening at 11 a.m. to haul the material away. So that's on average, we take about 2,500 cubic yards of material out, which is, it's a sizable amount of material. And I think in the past, we had 5 rounds for each section in their town. And one of the things we're suggesting now is, well, let me digress. We had 5 years ago. We reduced it to 3. And I'm actually just bringing up the subject if there's an appetite to change this to maybe 2 pickups. Currently it's proposed right now from April 23rd to May 16th. That's the time frame in which we're proposing to perform this spring rakeout, and that would be 3 pickups. for each section. And I just didn't know if there was an appetite to reduce it to 2. If we were able to reduce it to 2, then DPW could do other things for that period of time where we're not doing spring breakouts, such as, restriping roads or, doing other maintenance. That's important as well.
And Paul, where would you make the cut, in the front or in the back?
I'm interested in hearing what people think. Honestly, my thought was offer one in the beginning, maybe skip the middle, and then offer one at the end. And this way, you cover all bases.
Anybody have any thoughts?
I don't know, I'm just worried about, I'm all for slowing, pulling back a little bit, just like we were for the leaves. But going from like 7 to 6 is one thing, but going from 3 to 2 seems like a lot, and I'm just concerned about the ability of residents to clean out their yards.
I agree.
That's what I thought too. Because already, like, I don't know what we would be as like a resident. I don't know what we would do with all of our lawn stuff. Because I feel like even with the 3, I had all my bags sitting there for like a long time.
Okay.
I don't think so, Paul. I think you're going to keep it
I
the way
like-
it is, April 23rd. I also think, we're jacking up taxes. I just don't think this is something to go to a fight for.
That's fine. I wanted to throw it out there to see
Okay.
if there was an appetite for
All right.
I like the thought process though, Paul.
it.
All right. Dave Barry, 245 Hilton Avenue, curb.
So along 245 along Hilton Ave, from the block between from on that entire block, we have a hit and miss curb. None of it's in very good shape. For the road program, we wanted to entertain doing a piece of curb. We are familiar, however, with doing one section of curb, inspiring a lot of residents to ask about their curb. And we wanted to air the question and concern about doing any curb at all.
So, Dave, why did you select 245 Hilton Avenue?
It is a food pantry.
Right. So this is the St. Joseph's Food Pantry. It's a house there. There's a curb and there's no curb and quite a bit of a sort of a divot there, correct? Where water puddles up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When people pull up either to drop off food or pick up food, either volunteers or the people who are driving up get stuck in these puddles.
Is there a reason we're not having the property owner do the citing them and having them repair like we would any resident in town?
We don't, you don't require it to have a curb, so you would not get cited for it. Before they did my street, I didn't have 50%.
You mean it's not back?
You're cutting out.
Okay, I'm misunderstanding. I thought the curb was, oh, sorry. I thought the curb was in disrepair, but apparently there's no curb at all and never has been.
Disrepair, severe disrepair.
It's also missing.
Yeah.
Right, but it was there. It's just that they weren't maintaining it. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to say if my curb was so disrepaired that it was running on the property, I would be cited and have to fix it. And I also pay property taxes, no disrespect to St. Joe's.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Equal application again.
Yeah, but again, you would not get cited for a curb that's in disrepair because you don't need to have a curb. I never had a curb and I never got cited. So, what's the cost of this, Dave?
Curb runs $40 a linear foot. So for St. Joe's, we're looking at about $2,000-$2,500.
It's, in fairness, I think it's the curb return too is probably a little more curb than that to complete it. So it's probably about $5,000 worth of work. I think the only reason we brought this up is because I believe it's a nonprofit, is my understanding.
Yeah, of
And-
course it is, but I just don't think that's how we decide this stuff. I would rather see maybe a approach to St. Joe's, Father Joe or whoever runs a food pantry to see if we could do a cost share.
And we've done that in the past as well.
So why don't you propose that, Paul?
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, I have a question. Were you also proposing to use dollars that would normally go for roads to the curb?
Yeah, that's the main reason we wanted to bring it today, because we have this budget issue around the road program.
So
Right, something gets sacrificed, like what doesn't get done if we put this funds for a curb?
Uh,
Can
pavement.
I just clarify one thing? So when we do a road program, we typically upgrade the curb ramps at the intersections. And that includes sidewalk and curb at those intersections. So the ADA ramps. So curb work and sidewalk work is part of the road program that we normally would perform. So, again, this is about maybe $5,000 worth of work. And, I think our total budget's 1.2 million. So just to keep it in proper perspective.
It may not be our, to Mr. DeLuca's point or experience, our practice that we require the installation of a curb, but the code is clear that curbs are the responsibility of the adjoining property owner. And where the curb is in disrepair or is in need of installation, it's the responsibility of the property owner.
Right. The only reason we're even talking about this is because they're providing a public service. They're providing a food pantry. If they weren't doing that, and I'm sure there's parts of the curb along Hilton Avenue, along the church, that's also in disrepair. We're not talking about that. We're talking about where they provide food. And if we don't want to do it, that's fine. Or if we want to do a cost share, that's fine. But this is different than anything else.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'd
All right.
like
I just
to
wanted to
Directors-
chime
pursue,
in. I've
Yeah,
I've
go
done
ahead.
deliveries for them, and so I know with the area you're talking about, and I pull the car up, and it is a little awkward because the volunteers come out and they have to kind of open the door and sort of lean over a little bit. So, I mean, it's once a month, volunteers pull up and they pick up the food and they deliver it to individuals throughout Maplewood and South Orange. So they're doing it's a really great service, and I have noticed this problem.
Okay. So Paul, check with the church, see if they if they're even interested in having a conversation with us, and then we can talk about it again.
Okay.
The direct install program.
So I attended a meeting with PSC&G, talk about the direct install. I did speak with their licensed contractor who does direct install. I believe you have listed here as Tri-State Light and Energy. And, I spoke to our liaison, Gary Williams. They do have a direct install program. It's not as robust as it used to be in terms of cost sharing. They essentially cover 40% of the cost through the BPU. The amount can also, as I understand it, be spread throughout the bill on a monthly basis over a 5-year period. This would be effective, this program, to upgrading our lights, which are primarily LCD, which is an older technology. This would be effective to upgrading our lights in our buildings to LED. And the benefit of LED is, A, it's more environmentally efficient, draws less power, and is more maintenance free. And it's brighter. So a building like DPW, for example, in the garage, we can't even find light bulbs for the fluorescence anymore because it's antiquated and it's just not manufactured often. So it's tough finding light bulbs. Certain light bulbs in the police building are tough to find and expensive because they're just not common. So that's the program, and I'd recommend we move forward with it as we've done in years past. I think the last time we did it was 2015, 2016.
So Paul, we get the audit done and then we get to choose what we want to do, correct?
Yes,
So
yes.
there's no obligation. Once we get the audit, we take a look and we decide what we want to do, and then it gets paid over time through the bill.
Right, and once they're done, I can present it to this body. There's no obligation. They perform the audit as they've done in the past, and generally speaking, the payback period is, 2 to 4 years in that range, 2 to 5 years. The program is a little different. It offers a little more flexibility. They actually include the ability to also promote HVAC replacement, which they haven't done with the direct install program in the past. So boilers, for example, could be replaced with this program. And I think, for example, Town Hall, the boiler is very old there, and we've fixed that boiler multiple times. We've had cracks in the boiler that had to get welded. So that might be a good start. I know we want to look into the heat pump solution and prioritize that, and that's something I could also ask about.
Is this the same company who did it back in 2016?
I don't believe so. I think it's a different company, yes.
Because I feel like we weren't really happy with the results of that audit, if I remember correctly, or the company who did it.
I think you're thinking of the LGEA audit that we did, and that was a little different. It's a different program, right?
Okay.
Yeah. This is the direct install we did was, I think, from 2015. And I would say overall, the program was good. It upgraded our lighting. Some of the fixtures, like motion sensors, they have a tendency to go. Some of them have failed, so we had to replace them out. But overall, I'd say the program was pretty good.
Is there a downside?
Honestly, I can't think of a downside for the program because there's a cost sharing. So the BPU is picking up some of the bill.
And we don't have to front money for it?
No, I don't believe we do. And again, when they come out with their with their audit, they're going to go over the numbers and the costs, and we can review all that. But I don't believe there is a front end cost. They bill us over 5 years, monthly installments.
Yeah, no, PSE&G pays for it and then bills us. So there's no cost to us up front. No cost for the audit. And it gives us a wealth of information.
Okay, then
And hopefully we don't really see that charge in our bill because it'll be offset by lower consumption charges.
Correct.
if we do the
Yeah,
improvement,
exactly.
which costs money. So I'm fine because obviously I want energy efficiency, so.
Okay. Deborah, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, school traffic. So the middle school, Dave Barry and Sergeant DeFazio and I went to the school last week, and we were presented with a presentation on traffic. I'm going to put it up.
While you do that, I also was at the BOE meeting where they presented it there too. So just commend those kids. It was really good.
Let me find it.
I heard good things about it.
Okay, here we go. So this is Cross Guard. It was a presentation by these students, and basically this is a middle school. They look at, this is the tank team. They look at problems in the community, try to solve it using science, technology, and they made this video to show the problem. Let's see if we can get it to work. Well, maybe not. Okay. But essentially, what they're talking about is this is the middle school and the problem of right back here in the red box of the drop off on Maple Avenue and Salter intersection. And they've come up with 3 proposals, 3 options. And their options is, I guess we're still talking about the problem here. It's very slow here. So again, it's the drop off in the morning. They did a survey of the students and they come up with, they got 350 responses and over 50% felt that it was unsafe back there. This is the intersection. Overhead shots. So here's their solutions. Their first solution was to put a police officer or a crossing guard in the back. We now have a police officer here at the intersection of Baker and Burnett. And we have a community service officer that's here at the intersection of Baker and Dunnell. What they were suggesting to us is put a police officer here or a crossing guard. We did explain to them that the crossing guard would be able to cross kids, but they are not able to direct traffic. That's not their responsibility, nor are they authorized to do that. So we're really, if we're worried about traffic back there, in addition to crossing, then we would have to talk about a police officer, and we kind of explained to them that that was a difficult thing to provide on a daily basis. Their second solution was to eliminate parking, which is now teacher parking along Maple, along the school, and create these drop-off zones and leave this as 2-way. This was another suggestion they came up with. And then their third suggestion is to create a 1-way all around the building between 7:55 or roughly 7:45 to about 8:15. So for a half hour, create a 1-way around the building with drop-offs on Maple. People would be able to access Maple from the from Burnett, and then they'd be able to drop off children on the passenger side into the school on the school side. Already, this section of Burnett is 1-way off of Baker in the morning, so it just means continuing this 1-way pattern around. Basically, I could show you a couple other things. They talked about barricades and stuff, and they also came up with a mechanical solution of putting these in the road, sort of scissor barricades, which these would be put in the road, and these barricades would go over. We suggested to them that this was, in our opinion, Dave and DeFazio, in my opinion, this was the best solution, and that we would be able to do this with existing barricades and signage, 1-way signage. We already now have a police officer here with a police car. We have a barricade here at Maple and Burnett. And we would just require another barricade, 1 more barricade at Salter, which would direct, again, anybody coming from Burnett would be able to make a left onto Maple and drop off kids. Anyone coming down Salter would be able to make a left and drop off kids. In addition, if you make this left here or make this right here and you drop off a child, you would be able to exit on Salter. So that gives you an ability to get some relief valve from this corner, or same thing here. If someone exited on Burnett on the side of the school, they could continue down Burnett to go to Pearson and maybe to Valley. So this is what we're proposing. Dave, did you want to mention anything?
No. Oh, not really. No, thank you.
Okay. Paul, you looked at this, and do you have any comments?
Well, my first thought is that I'm a little nervous with my job security right now because I think it was very well done. I like the idea of the 1-way circulation. I'd want to look at it a little more closely. You know, my big issue is with drop-offs, you know, if they're on the school side, that's where we want people to drop off. We don't want them crossing the street, especially kids. So I like the idea of reserving that entire area for drop-offs. Right now, people, I believe parking is permitted around the school.
Yes, and that would stay.
So maybe a portion of it can be designated just for drop-offs, you know, in the morning at a certain time. You know, and that would allow parents to drop their kids off safely. I don't like the idea of young children having to cross the street, getting dropped off on the other side and having to cross the street.
Yeah, this would not do that, Paul. This would, people would be able to drop off. So there would be, this is a line of teacher parking here.
Right.
And, you know, teacher parking is at a premium.
No,
Across the street is about 15 commuter cars for the train.
understood.
So
Understood.
people would be able to pull up here, pull up, their kids would get out on the school side. They wouldn't have to cross the street.
I'm not being clear. So what I'm just suggesting is maybe if we have designated drop-off areas in lieu of the parking, you may not have to make it one-way circulation if people can drop off naturally in that direction.
No, it's not going to work. You know, I think the problem is, well, let me, I did get the video up. I'll just show you what goes on back there.
Also, while you do that, parents don't listen to the drop-off zones. Like we have that at Tuscan along with the runway, and they still don't drop off.
So
at the
here,
zones.
right, this is what would happen. These cars, just like this here, kids would get out and get out on the school side. What we're eliminating is the cars coming this way.
We
For
can't
one
see
half
anything.
hour.
You're not sharing.
We can't see anything.
Oh, you can't? I'm sorry. All right. Well, it's a very nice video. But it's a huge,
I like the idea of the one-way. It's fine. I think it would be safer making it one-way. You're reducing, you know, potential conflicts. And I like the idea of the drop-off. I'm fine with it. I would want to look at it a little more closely because I haven't had a chance to study it closely. I reviewed it with Dave. But you know, in general, I think the one-way circulation is fine.
I love the idea. I drop off at MMS many, many mornings, and it is like a disaster and a mess. So I really like this idea, and I like that there's an outlet. Like I always continue down Burnett. One thing is that even with the barricades, cars still drive the wrong way. They always are coming through that barricade on Burnett to drop off. And so I think we would just need added enforcement once we start it with traffic coordinators there so that people know what they're doing.
Now, police are doing this with the Tuscan school now, right? The one-way?
yes.
Yeah, they've been doing the one way for a couple of years.
And they did that for Seth Boyden.
But when the police aren't there, even when the police are there, people still don't obey the rules. And when the police aren't there, they use it as a, you know, as a excuse to not follow the rules. So just at the beginning.
There is precedent though in doing this on a temporary basis. Dave, do you have a question?
Some of the conversation that we did have at the middle school was the addition of, on those barricades, those sawhorse barricades, the addition of do not enter signs to clarify the explicit point to not enter. It's a baby step advancement to hopefully carry that message for those motorists. And Paul, to the one-way traffic and the drop-off point, something the school principal had offered was that they reserve that parking, that teacher parking curbside, reserve it for that morning drop-off as a drop-off area. That way, if there's a teacher who's late, that teacher still has a parking area because they show up after the drop-off period, but everyone still benefits from that drop-off area. So we're not erasing a parking situation, which is a problem already, but we still get the benefit of our need for drop-off area while maintaining a parking need.
I feel like that gives an incentive for a teacher to be late. so that you can get a good parking spot.
I don't think we agreed with, I don't think the school has agreed with us to eliminate that parking for teachers. They don't have enough parking for teachers as it is. They need to be able to have teachers park there. What we're talking about is people pulling up in that second lane and dropping people off. And, the same thing with commuters. We don't have enough commuter spots. So we're just talking about a half hour a day. I don't want to do a big engineering thing or move a lot of parking for 1/2 hour a day.
Yeah, I agree. And also we gave up parking spots to create more teacher permit parking already. So like, I
Correct,
just
the
don't
along
think,
Donnell.
I don't think we get rid of parking, but I'm supportive of the one way.
So I also have done this drop off, and just like Deb, it's kind of a mess back there. So I completely agree with the problem that these kids pointed out. I wanted to point out that there already is no parking on Burnett in front of the middle school. So that already is a drop off zone. And the way the kids enter the middle school is that back entrance is 7th grade. The front entrance on Burnett is 8th grade. And then the entrance on Baker is 6th grade. So
Right.
they have it divided by those 3 entrances. There already is no parking on the Burnett side. So I would agree. I completely agree with Vic not to disrupt any of the parking. It's already like very scarce for teachers. But I think the one way is a really great idea, because when you go on Burnett and then you take a right back there on Maple, and it gets crazy with cars coming the other way, and they're dropping kids off on the other side, and kids are darting through cars, and it's really, really unsafe. So I really applaud the kids for bringing this up.
Yeah.
One thing I might throw out there as an idea is, when you look at that aerial view of that intersection, it's got those 2 crosswalks. What about doing some striping so that that whole box is kind of striped in, so you add like crosswalks and sort of like sketch in that box to really make it obvious to drivers that that is a kid drop-off area. I'm thinking of that intersection, at South Orange and Ridgewood, where that whole box is kind of striped in. Just throwing it out there.
Dave, you had your hand up.
Paul, Manhattan's old don't block the box hatches, the checkers.
So you're talking here in the back? Because right now there's only one crosswalk.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah,
not 2
because
cross.
kids cross that other way. Kids cross anywhere over there, but
Yeah,
just sort of like really emphasizing that that is a pedestrian area.
Right. The problem is, as you see here, we have no curb, we have no cut on this side.
Yes,
So it would take construction here. We'd have to have a ramp and a ramp here where we
I
have,
see.
sort of like this here. So this would be a much more detailed application than just putting striping here.
I see.
Because you see the difference in this curb here as the 2
Yeah, I see. I
depressions.
see.
This only
Yeah,
has
so
one.
try the one way first, and if it continues to be a problem, then maybe escalate. Just a suggestion.
Deb, I'd like comms to work on what's the word I'm looking for? Just a regular communication from the township on the health benefits of walking to school. And because we can't keep changing everything and striping everything for, we have to get a program going, and the school tries it, but it's hit and miss. I think it would be beneficial to do, because there's a ton of health benefits to walking to school, and safety is obviously one of them, since when there's too many cars and pedestrians, we have too much conflict, and we're trying to engineer the solution, but we need help from the other side, the users, the kids who are within walking distance. I just think there's a positive message that we could put out there to encourage safety for more walking to school.
I think a lot of kids are coming from really far, and when the weather's bad,
Yeah.
like actually
I'm
think.
not talking about the kids coming from
No,
South.
But I'm saying, like, I think that making it easier for kids to be able to bike to school because then they can get there faster and it could be safer would be more of the priority. But walking, a lot of kids do walk to school and a lot of kids are walking from far distances to school. But like, I don't necessarily agree about a campaign about walking to school when in general kids are going farther distances and it's really hard.
Okay,
Because
because of the
I understand. I don't want to argue about it right now. I just think it's an initiative that's worth putting out there because it is something biking to school, a lot of, maybe the kids don't have bikes. I think bike and walk to school, if we're pushing bike and walk, why would we not push it during school hours for kids? So I'm just going to leave it there. I just want to put it out there.
Another idea is a lot of parents actually drop their kids off in front of our house and the kids walk.
Are you
or like
charging for that?
I should. But a lot of kids will walk from, like, they'll go to a friend's house that's nearby and they'll walk. And yeah, I should be absolutely shamed for the 1 or 2 times that I have driven.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm like
I know.
practically at a drop-off zone. What are you driving your kid to school for? But
I know.
I do-
It was once or twice.
I do think we might want to explore drop-off zones in other places. Like the business community has talked about this too, for like Ubers or whatnot. So like if we had a drop-off zone somewhere near the village or the park, then it might alleviate some of the drop-offs at MMS because it would be easier for a parent to just pull up, the kid hops out and walks the 5 minutes it is. And just in general,
Yeah.
like about the high school, like I'm in support of having drop-off zones in areas to alleviate some of that.
Yeah, I
So
think that's
at the
great.
moment, what we have is a proposal that was presented to us from the kids that suggests that we make that school area a one-way. And I think we're gonna talk about it tonight at Public Safety to get the chief's view. And Patrick, this is something that the chief can just implement, correct?
Yeah. If we did one ways, that we would probably establish by ordinance. Typically they are, but otherwise, like all these barriers and things, yeah, we could do.
We didn't do that by, I mean, we're not doing permanent one-ways.
Okay.
We didn't do that on Harvard for Tustin. That's just closed by the chief.
Mhm.
And we did it on Harding and Brown. That was closed by the chief.
Yeah, I guess when there are police officers there, then that would make sense that it doesn't need to be established because you have something there overriding the existing ordinance. Yeah, but that's something that he could implement.
But I do think we shouldn't do it just like that. Like, I think there needs to be a communications plan that so
Yes.
people know, and there needs to be a
Yes.
runway.
Yeah, there needs to be a plan. There needs to be communication by the school and there needs to be communication by us.
Yeah.
But the students are going for a presentation on the 24th of March for an award. And they would like to get a sense from us whether we're going to implement it or not. And if we could implement it before the 24th, that would even be better. But maybe it gets implemented on the 24th.
I say we try it.
What we will need is some coordination with DPW for signage and things like that. You know, some do not enter signs,
We can
left
provide
turn
all
only
that.
signs, something like that.
We can provide all that. And the nice
Okay.
thing is, guess what? It's cones, barricades, and signs. So if for any reason this didn't work out, and I can't foresee why it wouldn't, but if it didn't, then we could change it.
Okay.
And then Pat, you'll work with Miriam and Cindy to get some kind of communications plan out around it. with the
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
So next we're talking about Columbia. This is so much easier.
So
Malia, you have some thoughts on this. I mean, we've had some I'll just tell you that in our preparation meetings for the bike lane calls, Patrick and Paul and I also had some conversations about Columbia. So why don't you go ahead and talk about what you came up with?
Oh, good. Well, this is more of a discussion, and I'm not quite as savvy as the middle schoolers that have a whole presentation and thought out plan. So kudos to them again. But I wanted to point out, and I think that, I'd like to hear Miss Ingles' perspective as well, because so Columbia, again, this is not something I do every day, but especially on some of these cold days, or rainy, I have dropped off at Columbia. I kind of use it as an excuse to like sort of see what it's like, at the drop off area, myself. And so from where I am at Valley and Crescent, I drive down Valley. I take a right on Oakland Road, and then I take a left on Kensington and go all the way to the end to Parker. Kensington gets really blocked up with cars. And a lot of times cars, I kid you not, cars will go to the end of Kensington where it hits Parker, right in front of the school, and they will do a 3-point turn in the middle of the road and then head back out instead of turning onto Parker. It's insane. So there's cars going down bumper to bumper to get to Parker. At some point on that stretch, kids will get out of the car and then they'll cross in on Parker right in front of the high school. And so cars that are making a right from Kensington onto Parker, they have to wait for all those kids. And then there's kids coming up Parker and they have to wait because kids are crossing both ways. They're also going across Kensington. I've seen middle schoolers that are walking down Parker, which I don't know, maybe it's kids like the kids that I saw, I know they live on Richmond and they're just walking down Parker and maybe they just like to walk past the high school because it's like cool. But I see middle schoolers walking down as well. So they're crossing Kensington, going down to Valley. It's a huge mess over there. And so some of the thoughts that I had were very similar to the thoughts at the middle school were to, barricade. There's Kensington, and then north of that there's North Terrace, which when it crosses Parker becomes Academy. So those two streets get used a lot, and then the cars. So you get to the end of Kensington, most cars will turn right onto Parker. Some will turn left, and oh, that is a mess because they're trying to turn left, and the cars are trying to go straight, and it's you know, it is definitely a bit of a mess. If you get there like 5 or 10 minutes early, it's not like that, and you can drop off pretty easily. And then after the fact, it gets even when school starts at 7:50, 7:55, 7:50, I think. Um, and yeah, then it kind of clears up. So the thoughts were, blocking off Kensington and North Terrace, same as we were talking about with the middle school, so that we don't have those cars turning onto Parker, because at least that eliminates that. I mean, making Parker one way during this, I think, is really a really heavy lift because it's such a heavily traveled road. So that wouldn't be my top thought. It's just I wanted to hear what other people thought, wanted to hear what Miss Ingle thought. And then also I love the idea of establishing drop-off zones, whether it's on Academy or other places that are a little bit out of that area. Like when you come down Kensington from Oakland Road, there is one street that I forget the name of that street. It goes from Kensington to North Terrace. And that's a real nice way to drop off and then get out of there before the craziness.
So I'll just chime in. I do drop off there a lot, and I do Oakland. I make a left off Prospect onto Oakland where all the cones are. I make a right on North Terrace, and I do when my kid lets me drop her off on North Terrace, do a U-turn and drive around to avoid Parker. But most of the time, she wants me to drop her off in front of the school, and then any officer that's on the corner of North Terrace and Parker is like amazing. I just have to say that they're amazing. There's no officer at Kensington and the school, and that area, like you can't see anything, and that area is so congested and trafficy. I think anything we would do in this area, because we're talking about bike lanes, I wouldn't want to start something and then change it again. So I think it's like one big problem we have, even when we're talking about bike lanes. And again, I'm so supportive of drop-off zones, maybe on Academy, because then you go in the other way. But yeah, it's really bad. The barricading of the streets, I'm concerned about, then everyone would have to turn around. And I don't know a safe way to turn around. So that's my thought. Vic, you had thoughts.
So Paul, I'm gonna ask you to talk about the Academy drop off. We did talk about a little bit about, making Parker one way, in the morning. Nothing's permanent. These are all just temporary half-hour type things, 20-minute type things. We also identified the old bus turn-in on Valley. When the 31 bus used to run, there used to be a bus turn-in there, which has now become parking. I don't know who parks there. I don't know if students park there, faculty parks there, but that's another opportunity to create a little drop-off area there. We can talk to the county about just making that a no parking area and just a drop-off area. There's also a drop-off area in the back by the gym where people can pull into that lot and pull out because it has an in and out. And then Patrick mentioned that a lot of people drop off in the teacher parking lot on West Parker. So I think we have to talk to the school and identify all of these as potential opportunities for folks to drop off a little bit further away from the school. But Paul, why don't you talk about what you and Dynamic talked about with Academy?
Absolutely. So I did have an opportunity to witness the pickups and drop-offs in the past. The pickups are really congested in particular. I think maybe one of the most dangerous conditions exist when cars are parked parked and then double parked, right? They're double parked for their children, and you create these vehicles that are acting as blind spots that block children's views of oncoming traffic. That really gets dangerous when vehicles are stopped and they're blocking the views of kids. So I think first and foremost, we have to prevent cars from double parking and in the drive lane. That's number one. We did talk to Dynamic about this, and one of the thoughts they had was using Academy as a drop-off area. And you could, Dave, if you could just zoom in a little on Academy, maybe. Their thought was at the time making this one way for the purpose of the drop-off. This, by the way, can be done on a temporary basis, much like we just discussed, on Burnett Street and Maple. But this can be done as a drop-off area, and I think this was actually discussed on a preliminary basis with the school. The possibility of Academy. And essentially, people would take Hickson. A lot of people from South Orange would be taking Hickson. A lot of Maplewood people would be taking Beach. There was a thought due to the influx that this would be too much for the Maplewood people. They'd be too congested, and Beach is pretty tight the way it exists right now. So there was a preliminary discussion on creating drop-off areas at Kensington and North Terrace. Now, people can do that now. They could drop off their children. The problem is the kids would have to cross Parker, and with double parked vehicles, it's very dangerous. So once we eliminate the double parked vehicles, it'll clean things up and make it safer. If you zoom in by the school, Dave, we have obviously 2 bike lanes. They're going in each direction on Parker. And one of the thoughts was to incorporate mountable bollards. That's how we would prevent cars from double parking, right? You would only have a travel lane. You could not drop off in front of the school with these bollards. They're mountable bollards. So that's one way to try to enforce not dropping kids off. Now, Malia, you had the concept of making it one way. I think there's a way to make that work. I did speak to the police chief about that. And, I think his main concern was adding too much traffic on Valley. That's the one thing he did bring up. And if we are diverting the traffic in one direction, it would definitely impact Valley more. We would have to look at that maybe. But, you could also conceivably eliminate the lane on Parker, right, that's going in the opposite direction and direct the traffic towards Valley. And that extra space you would have, you could use it, you could make it into a drop-off area. We could actually do this while still maintaining the bike lanes. So it is possible to do that, and we'll come up with the sketch and circulate it once it's ready. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. The way Dave is drawing this, the cars would go in the opposite lane and you could have a drop-off area in front of the school. I think the school needs to probably look at this and provide some input and guidance from their perspective. I think, they're maybe one of the best people that, provide that guidance. But these are some concepts and ideas that we're coming up with, right, to accommodate this. So I think it's a work in progress. We gotta refine it. There are options. And I think certainly enhancing the safety, which is part of what we're doing with this bike lane at Kensington and North Terrace, the crosswalks and the signage, and preventing cars from double parking. I think that's gonna enhance the safety of kids crossing Parker if they had to.
Nancy, did you want to say something? I thought you did. Okay. So,
Did you ask me?
yeah, I thought you had, I thought you said something.
Nope.
Okay.
I like it. I like this schematic, Paul. If you have this as a one way, then you might, if you don't put barricades on Kensington and North, you would have cars from those streets trying to make that left onto Parker, which I still think would be problematic. So, and I do think also that a lot of people would still use Kensington and North Terrace to drop off. Even with these drop off zones, I think those will still continue to be used. So, I think that that adding barricades there would enhance what you're talking about, because then you keep those cars from having to make that left, which would really back things up and block a couple of walkways as they make that left.
So sure, and these are things that we can refine and talk about, but I agree, there would be barricades at each of those intersections to prevent those movements from happening.
It reminds me of an airport drop off, the way you and Dave were just doing that, right? For you.
Yep. That's exactly
Little
right.
bit.
That's exactly right.
A good way to promote it.
Both here and at the middle school.
Yeah.
And if they're similar, then you get parents used to it, right?
Right. So, what Paul said about the school. So what we would do is we would come up with a couple of concepts and then meet with the school and get their buy-in and then implement this. Whether it could get implemented for June, I don't know. I mean, we're running out of time. But clearly, whether we have bike lanes or not, we've got to do something here.
Mr. DeLuca, we could develop these concepts in the next week or so
All right.
for these options, and if there's a way we can meet with the school before the next meeting, then we can present them.
Yeah, that's easy to do. Okay. Any other comments on this? We're also going to talk about this tonight and get the chief's ideas too.
I'm wondering if this is something we can also share with the Youth Advisory Committee to get some of their thoughts.
I think we should wait until we get something from the school first.
Okay.
I don't want to go out there and create expectations and the school tell us that they're not interested in working with us on this. So let's just give them the courtesy of showing it to them first, and then we can talk. Because I think we'd want to talk to both the youth, student council, for example. We also want to talk to the parents council. And I think that's Frank Sanchez would probably ask us to do that anyway, because when we talked about the bike lanes, he suggested we do some of that too. Okay, so we'll be talking about this again tonight. So anybody who has good thoughts between now and tonight, you can share those good thoughts tonight.
My the challenge with the barricades on Kensington and North Terrace is then we're just encouraging people to make U-turns. Because I'm just thinking if you have Academy one way going from South Orange to Maplewood, and you have Parker one day going down to Valley, then anybody coming from the College Hill area or the middle school, we're all kind of like boxed in.
Right.
So I do think people are going to turn around.
Well, you could also maybe barricade it a block away too, where the cut street is. Dave?
As Vic said, I was just gonna add the name of Edgewood Terrace to that, and make Edgewood the loop,
Right.
the other loop, the far loop.
So you have a North Terrace Edgewood loop,
That works for
Yeah.
me.
and then people would have to walk that block down.
Yeah, I like that.
Because you're absolutely right.
Yeah, my kid will complain, but I like that idea.
You know, unfortunately, all the stuff we talk about here is predicated on drivers obeying rules. And it's just not happening anymore. People are taking it on, on themselves to decide how they want to drive, where they want to park. I mean, we had a situation yesterday at the middle school. I was there for the library, and Annette and I, we had a meeting, and we came out, and her car was there, my car was there, and all of a sudden there was a fire drill, or I don't know if it was a drill or something, but there were cars parked in the fire lane, and the principal was trying to ask the people to leave, and they wouldn't leave. It's hard to figure out. And I know, the engineers, you base everything, Paul, on when you design it, that people are going to honor the signs and honor the striping, and they just don't. And we're hearing that over and over and over again. And so, more drastic action has to be taken. That's, cutting down some of these. People just don't, you just don't see it. People just don't respect space anymore. It's just their space. So
We need to enforce more. And we can't keep engineering everything to death.
And you're right. We do need to have more enforcement. And there's got to be an expectation at some point that folks have to follow the law.
I do
Because
like
just
that.
like we can't over-engineer, we can't over-police. We just don't have the ability to do that.
I like the campaign that Cindy started, like around traffic. Like she started with the one with the stop signs. So, I mean, I know it doesn't do that much, but just getting messaging out there, why it's important not to park in a fire lane, for example.
Yeah,
We'll go into the heading, things you shouldn't have to explain.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
you can make it funny,
Yeah, yeah.
And, this is, if you figure that, parents are driving kids and setting an example, what happens when these kids get their license? Okay, overnight parking in municipal lots. So we've expanded it. And Mike, I'm going to reach out to you because we're going to need some signage up at these lots, and you and I can do a walkthrough, and we can talk about what kind of signage.
Yeah.
We'll do it next week, okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Just let me know your availability.
All right. All right, Paul, let's move to public buildings.
So public buildings, the police building, we still have the SEPI grant, the plans are ready, obviously. Last I spoke with Tracy Woods. The BPU is trying to get it on the Sage website. We have not received anything on that yet. I will follow up with Tracy on that and see where they stand. I meant to do that before the meeting to give you an update, but I wasn't able to. Town hall, I have no updates. Greenhouse, we are kicking off the tank removal, the underground tank removal on the 13th, which is tomorrow. The skins material has arrived, the contractor Kustis. We expect that they're going to be starting that work in the coming few weeks. And the heat system bid opening is on the 20th of March. That's to replace the existing boiler with the high efficiency boiler. And it's been pretty well thought out, and I think that will work for the greenhouse very well.
Paul, can we give the timelines to Liz to give to the garden club? Because they drive in and out of there all day long, and they should let their members know. I expect that there'll be some limited access during this period, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to correspond with David Nile and the other
Good.
members to just give them a heads up.
Thanks.
Sure. The Woodland, first of all, the DPW, I'd like to thank Mike and Josh and everyone there. They did a fantastic job doing temporary repairs for the staircase on the side of the building, the dual stairs that led to the second floor. They actually separated from the platform. It was a very dangerous, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but I had to close it down temporarily. It was a bad situation. And in very short order, they were able to use a sketch that we developed with MPP engineers or structural engineers. And we're supporting the staircase on both sides on a temporary basis. And that support actually went down to the crawl space. So it really is very strong. We are going to have to come up with a permanent solution. I don't think HPC is going to be very happy with having this long term. So we will come up with a permanent solution, and I think it's something that we're going to have to consider budgeting for, because I expect that it's going to be a little pricey. In terms of the bid for the replacement of the single door, Dave, I know Margaret solicited bids or pricing from several contractors. I want to say we got two bids, or two proposals, I should say, in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $23,000, as I recall. Did we receive any more bids than the two?
Not to my knowledge yet. However, I am expecting a bid report from Margaret.
Okay, so
What is the timeline on that?
we have to check with the contractors and work out the schedule, but we're hoping in the next 4 to 6 weeks we'll be able to work this out and get them on site and get them working.
So let me ask you a question. I know you guys are doing everything you can, but why is this taking so long? We brought in Margaret to make this happen.
No, we've spoken to her. I think we've tried to push her on certain things. I think part of it is we're looking for grant reimbursement, so we want to package this, and in doing so, we can apply for a grant that's actually due in the near future that we'd like to submit for and try to get reimbursement for. The idea was to do the pilot program and replace one door, get a better idea of the other doors. I know she's been on this, she's been handling this for quite some time. She has made some strides in terms of, trying to save some costs. But we've been kind of working with her on the schedule, and we've been pushing her as much as we could.
Patrick, I thought we were doing the one door on our own and then using this as the model for the grant.
We are. I mean, it's on our own, but she's been assisting to try to make that design as least complicated as we can. But yeah, this is our project.
Yeah, so I don't understand. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because, HPC is jumping down saying, you cut us out of this, what's going on? We've been asking, people who use the building ask, we talk about this meeting after meeting, and it just doesn't seem to move. We're unclear. We got two bids. We're unclear where it's at. I don't get it. Can you get us an answer by the end of the week? What's happening with a timeline?
Yes,
Yeah.
we could get you a more accurate timeline.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Beck, it's only been like 6 years. And HPC's been involved a lot, so I don't,
Not
at
lately.
this point.
not at this
Cut
point,
them out.
before.
And they're not happy at all.
I know, sure.
All right. Paul Bergdorf.
Bergdorf, don't think we have any updates on that. Same thing with 1978. The senior center this year will be looking to replace the second part of the roof. I don't have any further updates other than that. The Hilton branch. So there was a leak from that intense rainfall that we had several weeks ago, or last week. And, I did do a site visit with Dave, and we had Peter Traub, well-respected roofer, attend. It's pretty clear to us that the leak is not necessarily related to the work that was recently done on the flat roof. We think the valley needs to be replaced, and we're working on getting an RFP to replace the valley, replace all the copper flashing, and do the actual slate roof tiling. We have money left in the contract, and I think we have sufficient funds to do that. and we're looking to get that out as soon as possible.
Is that the slate or is that the fake slate that you're doing on there?
I believe it's real slate that's on that
It
building.
is. It's real.
No,
slow.
I know it's what's on there, but are you replacing it with the same or?
Right now, yes, we would just replace it in kind.
So on the library, the new library construction, just next Tuesday, the millwork and is starting to be delivered and be installed. We are going to be ready pretty soon for training of for the building system. And I assume we would want, I know the library custodian staff is going to be, the maintenance staff is going to be trained. I assume we want some DPW people from buildings to also be trained, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna have Sarah coordinate that with you, Paul.
Okay, yes, please.
Vic, did you skip overnight parking or did I fall asleep?
You fell asleep. All we're doing is, I just said I'm gonna work with Mike on sign it. We need new signage.
Might be
Right,
that. I
Civic
had no last night. Go ahead.
Civic House?
So I'm sorry, Civic House. So we're waiting for funding. We do have a set of plans that are ready for public advertisement. As soon as the funding clears, we'll get that on the street. The firehouse buildings, we did a walkthrough 2 days ago and identified. I was with Mr. Weary and Josh, and we met with the fire department, some of the staff, the chief, and went through their needs and requirements for capital improvements. Pat, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I'll just say that some of the improvements I think are going to be handled through our operating budgets, and then some are going to be capital requests. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I'd like to highlight the capital projects because they will be included in the 2025 capital budget. So the Station 2, the rear garage door is broken. It's a 3-bay door, so it's very, very wide, very heavy. And the springs broke while it was up and the truck was going out and it fell down, crushing some of the lower panels. The repair quote that they got was $25,000 just for repair. The door's only 4 or 5 years old. So, I mean, the weight of it's the issue. We talked with the chief about breaking it up so that there's 2 bays on one side and 1 bay on the other, which is what they already have in the front. Everybody thinks that that's a good idea and it will greatly reduce the weight of the door. So Paul's going to work on that. Station 2 also needs a new air conditioning unit. The one there is very old and in need of replacement. The rest at Station 2 are smaller items that DPW will handle. These are not maintenance items. We're not painting. We're not, repairing fixtures. That's the responsibility of SCFD. But we are, if they have plumbing issues, heating issues, electrical issues, we're addressing those. At Station 3, the only big, we're going to run some electric up in their day room and in their bunk room. In both places, they have extension cords running all over the floors because the electrical existing is just not adequate. There aren't enough outlets and they're not in places where they could use them. So we'll be running some new electric for them. And then in the day room, there are 4 windows, vinyl windows that are all broken. They don't stay open. They don't latch. They don't close all the way. So we'll replace those 4 windows. And those are all the capital repairs.
There's no warranty, I take it, on the 4 or 5-year-old huge door that we replaced.
No, unfortunately not.
Was it installed incorrectly for that to happen? Like, I assume that the mechanicals for it would support
Yeah.
the weight, or
They should be adequate. This is the biggest. I think the chief had said that even the place that installed it, this is the biggest door that they had installed in terms of width, and so I just think it's a unique situation that anybody we go to is probably not going to design adequately because it's unique, and that's why we agree that it's in our interest to change it from 3 bays to 2 bays plus 1 bay.
Right, I'm just frustrated why we
Yeah.
didn't do that in the first place.
I agree, yeah.
Okay. Let's go to parks and grounds. So we got D Hart Park. One of the last communications we had with Paul was getting rid of the ball field here and putting 2 fields here. Malia, you have some report from rec and other groups?
Yes. So Missy and I brought this to the rec team. It and the discussion at rec was pretty much they looked at the plan, they agreed the softball field was not used, and the thought was, if it's not being used, it really would serve the town better to have that space used. And so they were in favor of the plan of the 2 soccer fields. They did think that it should be, made public. Mr. DeLuca has presented this at the meeting, the township meeting. I have spoken about it at the township meeting. I don't know if there's like a public meeting in the works or any plan for something like that along down the line. But just to, make sure again that we head off anything, ahead of time by being transparent and open about what we're doing. We also, Missy and I worked together to get the emails for the MSO softball team. And then we coordinated, so I emailed them all with her support and to get their feedback. And then I forwarded everybody, they responded in a in one voice they responded, and the gist of what they said is they confirmed, yes, softball does not use it, not for rec, not for suburban, and not for villagers. Those are our 3 softball leagues, so to speak, or teams. They said that the reason it's not used for softball is that the outfield typically is used by soccer. And so it's difficult to be able to use the full softball field with the outfield because the outfield is usually bleeds right into the soccer playing. And so it seems that it just is not compatible having a softball field and soccer there. They did express some concern that it's the only lit softball field, and that they would like to have a lit softball field, perhaps at another location, maybe Maple Crest or Memorial. So that's something to consider for future years. They also brought up the idea that if you have this, like a larger field space at DeHart, that possibly some of the players who are using Maple Crest, such as Ultimate Frisbee, would move to DeHart and free up Maple Crest more for softball. So that was kind of the gist of the remarks.
Is Paul, the contract we have with was it VHB, right?
Yes,
Does that have a public meeting component?
absolutely. Yeah, it does. And it's a pretty thorough amount of effort that we've included in the RFP. So that's several meetings and, you know, whatever meetings we have to conduct, and, I think it's important and they will perform that.
Okay, because I would agree. I think there's got to be, I think it's good that we touch base with all the users, but I think there's just got to be a public meeting, because I do know that some people from the neighborhood just go over with their kids and hit the ball around. So, and it's not a reason not to do it. I kind of like the idea of the 2 fields and being able to rest things and manage that better. All right, so Paul, I'll talk to you about when these meetings can be done.
Sure. We have a meeting, by the way, with Cougar Soccer, the head people from Cougar Soccer. We have the meeting tomorrow at 10:30. So
Okay.
I'm interested in, hearing what they have to say. In addition, we were at the field yesterday. I think looking at the layout, what Cougar Soccer presented was a field that was larger it was like a FIFA-sized field, like an international field size. And, that's how they like to line it. And I think looking at our field with the two fields together, we can accommodate high school size fields, which should be adequate. I think, if we were to try to accommodate two FIFA side-by-side fields in the space that we have, there would be significant design and cost overruns to accommodate that. I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm saying it would cost a lot of money extra to do it. So I think using the two high school fields side by side, you're minimizing how much extra walls are required, lights that have to be, relocated, stadium lights, and impacts to the pathways. So my recommendation is let's maintain the high school field layout that we discussed. And, I think that's what the field can accommodate.
Okay, well, I'm sure we're gonna have more conversations. When, in your thought of timing, when do you think you move from gathering this input to coming up with a final recommendation and then moving forward? Because at some point, work has to stop until we have a final recommendation, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Final decision.
yeah, here's the problem. VHB really can't, I mean, they're in the process of working on their existing conditions plan and survey and finalizing all the spot elevations they need, but they can't really start the engineering design until we finalize the concept. I think we're all in agreement that it should be graded on one plane so that it maximizes the usability of the field. I think our concept is there. I think we just need to confirm, yes, the layout with the two high school fields is what we're gonna do. And once we have that confirmed, then we can authorize the design and they could go forward. I think, in terms of going back and forth with the concepts, if we wrap that up in the next 3 to 4 weeks, if we could get that done, then, VHB can move forward and within 60 to 90 days, they'll have a very significant design ready for our review, and we would be able to, publicly bid that out shortly thereafter. So you're probably,
Just remember that once we get a engineer's estimate on the cost of construction, we'll have to do bond ordinances for that separately. That'll add a month and a half.
yes, because I think we deferred that cost.
Yep.
So it sounds like we should schedule public meetings like ASAP to move it along, right?
Yeah.
I'd
So
recommend
I'm
that.
looking at the calendar. If we targeted April 15th Township Committee meeting for a decision, that would give us one more meeting of this committee, which would be on the 9th of April, and would give us some time to have meetings with the community before then. All right, Paul, I'll work with you on getting some dates.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I digress for 1 second? Go back to the firehouse. I was remiss. I didn't indicate a major thing that's going on with the Boyden Avenue firehouse. And that is we've started the roof replacement for that building. So the contractor Safeway, they actually did the flat roof above the conference room at Town Hall. Very good contractor. They started the work. And their contract says 90 days, but their time schedule is 30 to 45 days. I expect that they'll probably keep closer to their time schedule, 30 to 45 days completion time.
Great. Okay, Maple Crest, we did award the contract to Suburban Consultant, I think, last week. Did they come up with a plan yet? Not yet.
We have a kickoff meeting.
Did he freeze?
I think so.
He
Oh,
froze.
good. I thought it
Gonna-
was
gonna
me.
kick-
In our, what's that?
We didn't hear you because
Start over, you froze.
you said you have a kickoff meeting and then you froze.
Oh, I apologize. So kickoff
Had a really
meeting
funny look on your face too.
on March 17th. So next Monday, and Mr. Barry's the one organizing that with administration, engineering, and recreation. Part of their program and what we'll talk about on Monday are the 2 in-person public meetings that we had in our bid. They have in their response. So we'll be, working with them on dates for that, and we'll coordinate with the township committee. When we had submitted our, rough budget for the grant funding, the budget for what was mocked up when we showed to the public was $1,356,000. Our $750,000 grant award plus our about $400,000 left from the spray ground gives us about $1,150,000. So we're a little short of the estimate, but that was an estimate just for grant purposes. So one of the early things we want to do with the design engineer is get a better idea of what that total cost will be. So we see if any changes either need to be made to the playground design, or we left some money kind of purposely in open space that we could always tap into, and that's pretty easily done. So those are the first couple of things we'll be discussing with them.
The original concept presented didn't include the accessible parking. So that would be an additional.
Yeah, I mean, the parking is more layout, I'd say, because we already have paths, though we could, we may decide that some need to be widened. And we have the parking areas. We're not going to build new parking areas, but it may be the layout of those parking areas. So signage, striping, we might decide to do some like different layouts in that area. So that won't be a large cost driver for the project.
Plus the grant can't cover that.
Right, because it's outside the scope. Yeah, but it can be included in part of our match. So,
Okay. Paul, anything on the pool?
I know Mr. Rand's working with Miss Mancuso in terms of, coordinating efforts to open the pool. Mr. Rand, you have any updates on that, the pool?
I have no updates at the moment. I'll reach out to Melissa and let her know when she wants to start getting things going over there. I need to have Nick available so Josh and his crew can just work with him on the startup procedures and everything. But I'll reach out to her after this meeting and see when she wants to start moving on that.
Last year we were doing the walls at this time, right? Was that last year? Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Yeah.
This will be the first year, I think Melissa said, in 4 or 5 that we don't have any capital projects going on.
Really?
This will be the first year we're late because we have nothing going.
No, we're gonna open on time.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
All right, roads and parking lots. So we have Rutgers, we asked you last week or last meeting to look at the master plan. You came back and said that there's a better idea. This is the idea I think you provided us from Dynamic. Dave or Paul, you want to talk about this?
Nick, can you zoom in a little?
I could.
I could talk briefly about this. So really just a couple things I want to remind everybody. We did circulate the report from Dynamic in terms of the warrant analysis for the traffic signal. They determined that a traffic signal is not warranted, and the report described the reasons why. So then we also looked back at the master plan, which I think, had some geometry that they had proposed for this intersection. They gave, I think, two or three alternatives, and one of them, most of the options they gave were just not going to work from a circulation standpoint, right? I mean, they had the curb jutting out really far, and it just wasn't going to circulate trucks. So we asked Dynamic to take a look at this, and they, essentially provided this sketch. And, they made certain recommendations. So they're looking at in terms of curb bump outs, to shorten pedestrian crossings. That's what they're proposing in red. And that would neck down this intersection. It would have a tendency to slow traffic down. And I think, this is an improvement over what was proposed on the master plan. So if we were to entertain this, I think this is more along the lines of what the plan would look like.
When it says improved alignment of Rutgers, is that because of the bump outs that would improve the alignment? Cause we're not doing any other switcheroos, are we? Or am I just not seeing how it's improved?
I think it's the crosswalk is moved over a little bit so that it's like corner to corner.
Yeah, I think it's referencing, they're making small tweaks in terms of the center line tail, double yellow tail to try to get cars more perpendicular. Right now, Rutgers is at more of an acute angle. And ideally with engineering, you want them at 90-degree angles, right? So people have equal sight distance on the left and the right. So they're just tweaking that design right there, that center line double yellow striping, so that cars are more oriented perpendicular. It's a very small tweak.
Okay, so you'd have to grind out the existing.
Absolutely.
And do the bump outs need to be that they look really long? Like really long, like very long. Especially on the Union side, coming from Union.
I was gonna ask
No,
about bike.
that's the Maplewood side.
I was
Oh,
gonna ask
sorry.
about bike lanes also while you talk about bump outs. I think you said maybe this isn't on the bike lane map. I don't have it in front of me. I don't
It is
remember.
not. This,
It's not.
no, Burnett is way too tight when you get down here by the,
Yeah, it's not on the bike plan, overall network plan that they proposed. And, in terms of the width of the dimensions, we can tweak this. This is really more along the lines of a concept.
Yeah. I'm
But
just looking at as Vic corrected me, the Maplewood side of the intersection.
yeah,
They're like super long. And then there's residential right there. They might want to use parking and not have it.
well,
bumped
they
out.
have a driveway here too.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm just,
I
just
think part of the
No, I
reason.
agree. It's too long.
Yeah.
Actually, if you're thinking of lengthening it, it's the people
That's-
come flying this way more from
Right.
Union. I bet you if you did the speed, you'd find the speed here is much higher than over here. But whatever,
But
you're
I
gonna,
think this is a good improvement because the signal isn't warranted and it's also $700,000 to do. So,
so Paul, you're gonna fine tune this and how is this gonna get paid for?
We could fine tune it and get the final sketch circulated. We do have a traffic calming budget that we anticipate getting. And, if we get that number, this is something that we could consider. It's gonna eat up a good part of that traffic calming budget. So, you're probably looking at $75,000 or more of curbing.
yeah.
So it's gonna eat up a good part of that traffic calming budget.
I know you're gonna have to do ADA accessible curbs on that bump out.
Yes, anytime we have a ramp, it's gotta be ADA compliant.
No, I know, but because you're putting a bump out, you're essentially extending the sidewalk area, right? So.
Yes, if there's a ramp right there at every crosswalk location, it would have to be ADA, yes.
Mhm. Can we use any CDBG money for that?
We already have it committed to a project that is larger than the CDBG money available. So
Yeah. 24,
none
no,
left, none left.
right.
Paul, do they do turning radiuses for trucks? Because we get a lot of truck
Mhm.
traffic coming out of Rutgers, into and out of Rutgers.
No, it's a very good question, and I didn't specifically ask them about that. It's something when we tweak this, I'll confirm with them.
Yeah.
Because that is a major concern, but knowing Dynamic, they probably did look at that.
All right.
Well, are they mountable curb, bump outs for those reasons? Or might you consider that?
You would,
It's something we could consider we could consider it, but I don't think the way they have it drawn that it's mountable.
Right.
and I'm not sure how, I mean, we may design it so that if it is mounted, it's less impacted, less damage, but in this application, I don't know you'd want it to be mountable.
Can you remind me how much do we have in the traffic calming budget? You said this would be a big chunk of it.
$200,000 currently in the capital budget.
So this would be almost half. And is there a lot of pedestrian traffic here? I mean, obviously there are some houses, some residents. I don't think it's
It's
super close
more,
to a school.
it's more, it's
There's
more
the
the
park.
vehicular, it's more the vehicular activity than the
Yeah.
pedestrian safety. There's more
Slow cars down.
accidents and stuff, yeah.
Not to downplay this intersection, because I drive through this and I get it's not a good one. But I'd like to see a lot of traffic calming happening around our schools and where we have pedestrians on the road. I feel like that's, you know, really what people are asking for. So, just putting that out there. It's tough to see so much of our traffic calming budget go to something that doesn't really affect pedestrians quite as much as other areas.
Yeah,
I
but it affects traffic calming.
No, but I agree with Malia about using so much of our budget in that area. I mean, especially I know it's later on the agenda, but like 2 kids got hit on Prospect Street and we still haven't done anything. And so
We've ordered the pylon.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's get it fine tuned. Let's see what the cost is. Let's deal with all these other questions. I think the truck question is a big one. There's a lot of trucks coming in and out of Rutgers there.
Okay.
And then we can decide what we want to do and if there's money around or not. Parker Avenue bike lane. So we're not going to talk about the merits. Any just quick reactions to the meetings? We had about 60 people each meeting. First comments, the first meeting we had about 18 people commenting. Second, we had 23, I think, commenting.
I thought they were great, and I want to commend you all for coming back with the second meeting with some of the answers to the questions in the first meeting. I thought that was really helpful because there were a lot of repeat people. Some people didn't listen, obviously, because questions came up, but I
Yeah.
thought they were good.
Some people join late and they didn't, they don't pay attention and all that. They miss it. But so the next one is the 24th. This is a more difficult stretch. Certainly the high school has its own challenge, but this has a challenge of finding space to do this with stores that are there, the park there, and just a lot of people that park on the street who live there. So much more than the other parts. I've been driving up and down Parker at different times, just counting cars, and there's always cars from Boyden to Irvington Avenue. So.
Paul, do you have any thoughts on the several emails about and also comments about Parker not being the more desirable street and using Elmwood instead? Because it's
Yeah,
come
we
up.
weren't going to talk about, I think,
Oh,
we're not talking about the merits because I think we didn't tell people we were. We told people we'd be talking about this on April 9th.
okay.
One note I do want to say is I'm surprised, like people think Parker isn't a good choice because there's too many cars and they're flying. So I feel like when we're talking about it, we should emphasize how it is a traffic calming and make it, I don't know, but I was just surprised by all those comments in that area. So
We did mention the traffic calming elements.
and if we make it safer to bike, then more people will do it. And it's not about leisurely biking. It's about using it as a transportation network, just like emphasizing some of that a little bit.
But I think when we get to after the conclusion of the meetings, I think your question, Nancy, is absolutely right on that we've got to have justification from our professionals. Why continue to think about Parker when people are suggesting others?
I had
Elmwood
Cub
is
Scouts
on-
ask me about this last night, and the reason I gave is what I've been hearing is people already are using Parker. You can use Elmwood and it's fine. You don't need a bike lane there. There isn't as much traffic there and the streets are wider, but people already are using Parker, including a lot of our high schoolers as evidenced by the bikes. So if they already are using it, then this would make it safer. So that's the reason I've been giving.
Okay. Village Center parking lot, anything else on that?
The center parking lot's complete. I've been talking with Aaron Rose, in terms of certain issues. I think there was some leftover bricks. Mr. Haran picked that up and, some other debris. We got that picked up. There was an issue with the gate closing, we were had to make some adjustments in terms of the gate, the hinge. But otherwise, the decorative rail was installed. The trash enclosure is complete, everything's complete there. The only punch list item I think we have is that they have to sweep in some extra mason sand in the pavers. Other than that, it's a complete project.
And there was discussion about expanding the garbage shed.
I discussed that with Erin Rose, and I think at the present moment, she's gonna work with the merchants to try to consolidate. I think we've tabled that until,
Okay.
she
Have-
handles that.
Have
I'm gonna
we,
take this off the agenda because it sounds like it's done.
yay, it always takes a couple years to get something off this agenda.
Yeah,
Wait,
Road program,
wait, I just have a question. Paul, has there been any negative or positive impact from anything about the one-way change? Has it been well received?
As far as I know, it's well received. I haven't received any negative comments about it. I think talking with the merchants in the past, they've, received it very well. I feel like the parking lot is significantly better organized. It's cars are where they should be. People aren't just arbitrarily parking. I think it certainly looks a lot cleaner. I think the project worked. I think it was a success.
Great.
road program.
We're trying to finalize the road program. There's still some details left. We're working on some drainage, concepts, and we're trying to get this complete so we can get this on the street sometime in May and have an award so that by summertime we'll be able to start the work. The goal is to try to get as much of the work done while the kids are out of school.
And the county projects, I know we got Valley Street sort of hung up.
Yeah, I saw that Asif actually provided us or his contractor, I should say, an update, and they're looking at the poles and the arms for the traffic signals that are expected to go in probably November of 2025 this year. So it's, there's still some hazards out there, and that's why there's cones right now. Part of the problem is they initiated a portion of the project, but not all of it. So some of it's on back order. I think they did that because of the grant. But in doing it in this manner, there's certain traffic boxes that, are sticking out or are not in the right location. And there's certain features that they installed that, that require the use of a traffic barricade or cone. So I will revisit that, but most of the cones out there are out there for a reason. It's because of the way they went forward implementing this work.
Okay.
Yeah, they left a giant hole at the intersection of Valley and Baker, which, as you know, a lot of middle schoolers cross there. It's like you go on the sidewalk on Valley, and then it's there's like a hole there, and there's a giant cone in there, but getting a lot of complaints about that.
We'll follow up with Asif, and an email will go out today on that.
Okay, CDBG. Anything on that, Paul?
Dave, do you want to update that CDBG?
We're waiting on a final bless from the CDBG program, and we'll once some budget once we get that, we'll be good to put it on the street.
And what about anything on the safe routes?
Safe routes, the preliminary design was authorized. GPI has been working on it. We've been seeing them out in the field doing work. We're working out issues along some of the routes that we're getting improvements. Certain issues with existing features like walls and how to deal with a step where you need ADA accessibility. Because it's federal money, there's an entire background check, with various agencies, and it just takes time. The project, we're looking at probably 27 construction, just to manage expectations here. So it just takes time.
Okay.
The good thing is the state pays for it though, and the feds.
That's always a good thing. All right, stormwater management. So the big issue still is the stormwater utility. We did receive the spreadsheet, which I will share with everyone. We got this from our consultants. This is the spreadsheet of every property. It has property location and then the owner, and although it's all by address, and then these are the bills. As you see, for the most part. Now, different classification of properties. Residential, mostly, again, 70-35. Condos are 70-35. Where we get into the bigger bills are some of the larger commercial properties, churches, things like that. So you'll be able to look at this. This is not a public document, so keep it to yourself. But it's an Excel sheet, so you can do sorting. You can find out, you can sort by property. You can sort by value, all that stuff. So I know we're doing a lot of public information in our newsletter. We're going to send a letter, most likely a letter, to some of the new big users or big fee folks, and let them know that this is coming, because we think that, we've done a pretty good job, I think, reaching residents, but we haven't done, as good on reaching the commercial folks and the industrial folks and some of the nonprofits. So we'll be doing that, letting people know. Bills are still going out, Patrick, in May or June?
May.
So, and then we have the capital projects that you're still fine tuning, right?
Yes.
So again, I know I mentioned at the hearing about putting back in the Meadowbrook project, because we're charging all those people a fee. It would be good, even if we don't start work, it would be good to see that it's in the budget.
And I believe it is. I can confirm.
Okay. All right, traffic calming. Anything else on stormwater, Paul?
I don't think so. I think, I just want to thank everyone for working so hard on this stormwater utility. I know it's a big lift, but I think it's gonna really work out. I think it's gonna pay dividends, because unfortunately, every year we seem to see these really intense storms. And we have to fight it. We have to find a way to get these improvements installed. And some of them are not going to be glorious. Some of it is upgrading infrastructure, making it more resilient, making it, fixing sinkholes and other things. It's not going to always be glorious, but it's important to do. It's needed. So
One thing the consultants told us last week, and where they've expended all their money from DEP, so we don't have them anymore unless we pay for them. And we may do that just because they're experts. But one thing they suggested to us is put up signs when we're doing these projects that this is paid for by the stormwater utility, so that it's clear that people see, that this is a benefit. They should have advised Joe Biden to do that instead of putting up this stupid bipartisan infrastructure thing. They should have said, this is Biden. Would have been a lot better, but all right. Traffic calming. I don't think there's anything here, right? Oh no, Prospect and Oakland and Prospect and Oakview.
we ordered the cones. DPW is going to do the install. We have a concept that we're going to work on, and DPW is going to do the install with oversight from the engineering department and dynamic if necessary. But we're expecting the delivery of those cones within 2 weeks, and once we get them, we're going to put them in. So before next
So
meeting.
on cones or the quick curbs?
It's not quick curb, it's the mountable pylons,
Okay,
the right term.
okay.
It's not the same as the quick curb that we put in at Tuscan.
Okay. So this is something DPW is going to do on their own.
Yes.
Okay. Are these like, I know on Valley Street over by Hickson, South Orange has some of these up. Are they similar to that? They just sort of a bollard comes out of the ground?
Yeah, it's a bollard. It's got a small base.
Yeah, okay.
They're going to be white in color. They're supposed to be the same color as the edge stripe that's there, which is white. So, yeah, similar.
And where are we on the striping bid? This was for Maplewood Avenue, Dave?
We had the kickoff meeting with contractor. That's scheduled for work April 14th and that week following, pending weather.
This is going to be done on Maplewood Avenue and Newark Way? Anywhere else?
No, the schools are out then, and that's why we selected that date, and we worked with police on that as well, with the contractors, so we have a plan.
Okay.
I want to add one thing, and that is not necessarily related to this, but I think in talking with my staff, one thing I want to see this year is an aggressive restriping program. And starting with Boyden is really worn. Obviously, Springfield Avenue is going to get done when it's paved. But I think, look, it's a big job to do. DPW can only do so much. We have latex paint, which is really not meant for high volumes. So we're going to do what we could do. I know Giancarlo, and that's one of the reasons I even brought up the spring breakout to try to free up some more time for our staff to do those, restriping programs. But we want to be aggressive with the restriping. That dollar for dollar, it's the biggest safety item that we could probably provide the residents and motorists. For dollar,
100% agree.
restriping.
Okay. We agree with you.
Okay.
Any new traffic calming requests come in?
Scott, do we have any new ones that came in?
The most recent one was Tuscan Road between Valley and Prospect, and we had Dynamic do an evaluation of the street. Granted, it's a collector road, and has high volumes, so there's not too much we can do in terms of physical traffic calming measures like speed humps or anything like that. But they did draft up a concept for us, and we're going to consider some of what they said. So mostly like road dieting, stuff like that.
We should have a final design by the next meeting.
We already did the parking spaces on the south side several years ago.
Yeah, they had some unconventional recommendations, and I want to review it in more detail before I present it to this.
Oh, I don't even want to know. Okay.
Is it a chicane?
Yeah.
No,
Little arms that come up and smack the car. Okay, recycling. Deb, the expansion of the plastics. You've been talking to South Orange and they've been typically South Orange?
Yeah, Pat had a meeting with South Orange and they were like, no way. And then I spoke to Bill Haskins and he told me some of his concerns, which is basically what happens to the other plastics. Is it really sustainable? So I told him he should talk to Pat and our environmental advisory committee since they've done a deep dive. And then I think he copied every single person in South Orange on the response. And now I'll throw the ping pong over to you, Pat, to see if anything happens.
Yeah, nothing else has happened yet.
Well, we did have a meeting with South Orange, our old recycling committee, the joint one where we came up with the whole new program a couple years ago. So the issue is that it's more of an environmental issue for Bill. I don't have any problem with advertising 1 through 7. I'm not quite sure what, I think his is strictly an environmental issue as to what the recyclability and the marketing for that would be. But I don't feel strongly either way on it.
He
Right,
does
that's why-
understand that if you don't recycle, it gets burnt in an incinerator.
Right.
Other people have to breathe that.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted him to talk to Andrew Howell, since Andrew was at the actual facility, and Andrew and the Environmental Advisory Committee had some of the same questions, I feel like, and came to this conclusion that we should. So I just want to get them together because I feel like when they talk, they can get on the same page, and then we can do it as a two-town thing. So I'll follow up with Bill and Andrew and see if they can just.
I just feel like I don't think we need both things happening. I think we can talk at the recycling committee because we're reconvening soon to go over because we're rebidding out the contract. There was agreement at that meeting to continue with Bay Shore. Paul and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong. That was right? And extend that for a couple more years because we're really happy with Bay Shore, and even though they're farther away, there was a desire to look. I think somebody remember, were we going to get more information on the other new facilities that were closer?
Yes.
First of all, I think Bay Shore is a good facility. I think that's what we represented to South Orange during our discussion, and that was backed up by us. And I think they're interested in shortening the distance and looking at other possibilities. So but I think as a town, I think we're happy with Bay Shore.
Yeah.
And it saved us, I think, some, pretty significant amount of money too, going dual stream and going to Bay Shore. What's up this year is Basso for next year, I should say, up next year. So that's what we're looking at is the collection side, updating that contract. And, we've learned a lot from some of the errors and problems we've experienced at Basso. One of the things we may include is the need for newer vehicles, that don't leach out glass when they compact and create hazards in our roads. So we've had to have sweepers come by and clean up that area. I mean, some of these shards you step on it, you'd be going to the hospital. It could blow out a tire. So, those are some of the things that we want to try to prevent. Recently, we've had an issue with Basso not collecting heavier cans, oversized cans. They said, oh, this is 75 pounds, it's too heavy. So we're going to put in clarification on weights of cans and clarify that, because it's just.
Yes.
I think it would be helpful for our environmental commissions to discuss behind the scenes. To the mayor's point, we will have that conversation with South Orange at the next meeting about can we do 1 to 7?
Well, and to
but
be
it
clear,
would be helpful if we had some convincing done beforehand, because when it was brought up last time, surprisingly, it got shut down pretty quickly. Or I shouldn't say shut down. South Orange pretty quickly had
Issues with
the
it.
opinion that they didn't want to do it.
Is it our environmental advisory committee at these meetings?
They
Yeah,
were, yeah.
yes, I keep trying to say so. There's two Bob has been involved since 3 years ago when we started doing this. So, and Andrew is at these meetings now too. So
Was Andrew at that last meeting where this was talked about?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew was at the facility. Bob was in Germany when all this was happening.
Right.
I
And
think
you were at the facility there. So I just feel like we should just keep this in the existing 3-year committee of the two towns and not have other conversations, because it's just confusing things a little bit.
I disagree.
I
think
disagree.
Bill and Andrew talking behind the scenes. Bill has specific questions that he was asking me for answers for, and I don't. It's all.
And Bill is at these meetings. That's what I don't understand. All the people you're mentioning are at these meetings.
Do you want to turn your meeting into a 45-minute conversation about the specific? I don't
No,
understand.
I'm saying that the environmental advisory committees on both sides, to Pat's point, should discuss it at their meetings and then bring it to our next recycling committee meeting, which hasn't been scheduled yet, but should be in the next couple of weeks. Paul, have you gotten the draft RFP from Ellen in South Orange?
I got it from her. I haven't had the chance to tweak all the changes though, make them.
The one thing that I observed in the meeting with South Orange is I think it's difficult for people from our environmental committee to disagree constructively with elected officials in South Orange. I think that's a difficult position to put them in. And that's why I think it's helpful for them to have a conversation behind the scenes, our environmental committee with their environmental committee.
But it's been, Pat, you're new to this committee.
We can disagree. I'm just, that's just
I
my
know,
opinion,
and I'm
that's all.
telling you, as the one who organized this whole thing 3 years ago, I think there's been very open, and Paul can attest to this, conversations with no hesitation because somebody's elected, and Bill is certainly amenable. I just don't want a million conversations going on all over the place when we have an existing group of both towns working together on this for years now. So I'm fine with,
We all talk behind the scenes sometimes, and if our environmental advisory commission put together a formal recommendation that we collect 1 through 7, and it wasn't really discussed in depth at the last meeting, why can't we resume conversations so that they can get more clarification before you all come to the table? Why is that?
because
We've done it with other things.
because the meeting was not to discuss as much what's being collected, but rather the contract, the RFP that needs to go out. So we only delved into this briefly, and we had 40 minutes because Walter started the meeting on one of those free Zooms. So we needed to get through the conversation about the contract. Doesn't mean we're not talking about it anymore. It doesn't mean we shouldn't, and it doesn't mean that both environmental committees shouldn't talk about it on the side and bring that to the next meeting.
Great, so that's what we'll do. We'll have them continue. We'll follow up and make sure that they're talking and have that conversation before your next meeting.
Okay.
On a bright side, check out our comms today. Cindy just put out something on fibers, on encouraging residents to collect more fibers. So check it out. It's a reel.
Yeah,
Looks really nice.
Make money on that.
Yes.
Okay, jitney service. So two things. We're gonna have a conversation later this year about potentially raising the jitney fee. What would be good, Mike, is if you could start collecting numbers of people using it and how it's gone up over the next. Do we still keep the statistics?
Yeah, we hold on to that. I'll
Okay.
start going through it.
Just to give us a sense, because I read this morning that New Jersey Transit adopted their budget, and their fare box provides 31% of their revenue. And we've kind of used that 35% as a revenue base for fee collection. The other thing with the jitneys, going back to the bike lanes, is there are 4 stops that are near or on Parker, one Orchard, one Coolidge, Burroughs, and Lancaster. The 2 of the 4 actually stop on, or I guess 4 of the 8 stop on Parker. So if you could take a look at those and see if there are alternatives where, I think on Burroughs, that's easy. They could stop on Burroughs instead of Parker. And on Lancaster, they could go on Lancaster too. Because if we have bike lanes, we'd like to get the jitneys not stopping on Parker. And then I forgot to ask, what is the date we're starting Springfield Avenue construction? And again, this is going to be done during the day and not at night, correct?
It's going to be done during the day, and it's going to start with ramp reconstruction. It's going to start with concrete work and pavers. Did Amaglio give us an updated schedule, Dave?
No updated schedule's been released yet.
So what was discussed was, I think an April start date, sometime in April, but we will nail that down in terms of a revised schedule. Again, we did have a meeting with Nicole Wallace and NJ Transit. I did offer to Nicole to have a meeting with the merchants if she wanted that. She hasn't asked me to do that yet, but we've offered it. And, when we have a finalized date, we will send that out. Initially, it's going to be the concrete work. It's going to be limited in scale. We're going to do certain sections at once. It's not going to be throughout the whole corridor.
And with the concrete work, how many months will that take? And then when do you think the paving will actually start? Will it start in April?
If you talk to the contractor, I think he's optimistic. He's looking at like a 45-day window for concrete work. And I think, realistically, he's probably looking at 2 to 2.5 months of work. I think it's going to be more work than he anticipates personally. I would anticipate that the paving, we're probably looking at August, September for the paving is my guess.
That's what it sounds like. Okay.
Vic, would it make sense, since aren't they having their annual meeting, the networking thing coming up? Would it make sense to?
Yeah, we'll talk about it at the next board meeting of the partnership. Yeah, I think there's got to be meetings of the merchant, of the business owners. They got to know what's happening.
But we have one coming up, I feel like, not just the board meeting, but don't we have their annual with the presentation?
Yeah, I don't know when that is, but I think it's,
Coming
yeah,
up in 2 weeks, I think. So I don't know if it's beneficial to
yeah. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it next week about planning those, including that meeting. I just don't remember when that is.
Oh, our board meeting's Monday. I didn't realize that.
Right.
Can we go back to the jitney for 1 second?
Yep.
I just want to note that one of our drivers resigned. So we have coverage and we're going to interview, we have temporary coverage and we're going to interview other drivers and I'm sure rehire someone. But I just wanted to put that out there, that one of them resigned.
Okay. Any other new business?
I have
One
old
item.
business. I have a
Old
question.
business?
Yeah,
Old business.
Deborah, go ahead first.
the bollards at the Greenway and Jefferson, I noticed still aren't there. So before people start asking me again, I just didn't know if they're ever coming back or what's happening with them.
We'll follow up with them. Mike, do you know if they're stored in our DPW building, the bollards? For the Greenway?
I'm not too sure. I'll have to take a look around.
All right.
You
we'll-
should have
we'll
gotten
follow up.
them. You should have gotten them from 7 West Parker last year. And they also need to be reinstalled on the parking lot side as well. And
Patrick?
locked with keys given to the school district.
Patrick?
Mhm.
Got an item?
I do. Tuscan between Valley and Prospect, we've had complaints about power lines coming down, starting fires along the street. We walked it with PSE&G recently, identified a lot of trees on school district property that are dead or just about dead. PSE&G was, I think, generous in taking responsibility to remove those trees. And they're also going to do some limb cutting for some of the dead limbs along other trees along Tuscan. That work, it'll be a lot. It's scheduled for spring break, so the week of April 14th, I think that's the Monday. And then that section of the road will be shut down while they do the work. Our DPW is going to assist them with removing some of the tree parts as they're taken down. And then after the work is done, we want PSE&G to replace that section of electrical line because with so many breaks, there's a lot of repairs. The repairs become weak spots, and we think it's worthwhile to have that repaired. And they have preliminarily agreed.
Okay.
I have-
Anything with the farmer's market you want to mention?
Hi, everyone. Morning.
Anything on the farmer's market?
I'm starting at the end of this month, early next month. But yes, I'm getting a lot of interest. I'm flagging the vendors that I'm interested in moving forward with. And, I hope to talk to both you and the mayor to see if you guys have any other interest in anything like that. Sorry, I'm so dark.
I know you're very dark.
I'm lighting.
I would just suggest, because the vendors really book out much earlier, I would suggest putting that sooner than later on your schedule to reach out to them. Just from experience, they get booked up for their 7-day week, like pretty
Right.
early in the year, and that's part of the reason they may not be available.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I have 2 quick things. The
Very quick.
streeteries, we're gearing up to, working with Aaron Rose and the applications in terms of the merchants on Maplewood Ave, getting those out and getting those set up. And also, we did receive a request at 44 Duran Road they requested that section of Duran Road from Brook Lane all the way to Ridgewood be included in the ordinance restricting parking within 5 feet of the driveway. The resident has been sending me pictures every day that there's a person parking, close to their driveway. That section of road is narrow, so it's tough for them to get out. And they've requested this. I've been collecting informally data not only from his photos, but performing some site visits, and I should have something by next meeting, some type of recommendation.
Okay,
What street? I'm sorry.
Durand, Lower
Oh.
Durand.
Yeah.
Got it.
So just so you know, the way this works, we have a list of streets in the ordinance that we add to no parking within 5 feet. So this would, if this is something that Paul recommends, we would agree to amending the ordinance to include this section of the street. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
You
See
too.
some of you at 11
Thank you.
11:30, right?
or whatever. What time is it? 11:30?
11:30, I think, yeah.
See everyone at 11:30?
Ribbon cutting.
Better.
Wear green.
Bye.
Absolutely.